everybody. My name is Paula Liang. I'm a proud member of Women's Giving Alliance in Jacksonville, Florida, which is about 450 women giving circle. And I'm also the chair of a network of over 70 women's funds and foundations and giving circles who all give collectively, called Philanos. I'm here today to talk with my friend Melissa about how giving circles can engage in democracy, civic engagement, and advocacy. One way is through political giving circles, which started popping up in 2016. Kristen Gillibrand was quoted as saying in a national magazine as advising women candidates to start women's giving circles if they wanted to be successful. And it turns out, we tracked it down, and she heard it from the executive director of the Washington Women's Foundation, Beth McCaw, at a luncheon. And that Washington Women's Foundation was the founding organization in my network. So that was kind of fun. As often happens in this ecosystem, you get introduced by a friend to talk about some common interest, and you meet the nicest people. 18 months ago, Melissa Walker called me to tell me about the rise of political giving circles. You want to tell us, Melissa?
Absolutely. Thanks, Paula. Yes, so I am a children's book author who has pivoted to become the director of giving circles at Future Now Fund. At Future Now Fund, we work to flip state legislatures, which are so important for everything from civil rights to education funding to healthcare, environmental policy, and more. And giving circles provide the electoral engine for that work through their organizing and community building and pooled funding. And we love giving circles. So since, my giving circle has been in existence since December 2016. And our political giving circles are giving to a 527 or a PAC to do this electoral work. We also have a policy C4 that does work around policy with state lawmakers. And that policy is based around shared values, which frame the work. And one thing that I like to say with political giving circles is that shared values are a really great drumbeat that we can return to again and again when we do this work. Do we care about clean air and water? Do we care about investing in children, empowering people of our special interests, good jobs, affordable quality healthcare? Yes, we do. And that's what political giving circles care about as well. So,
our mutual friend Holly Lee, who is both a member of my network and a member of yours, always talks about giving circles as being the place she goes to talk about values because she's not a religious person. And that it's sometimes hard to kind of have those conversations without aligning around a cause. And the other thing we want to talk about is advocacy and how giving circles can engage in that. And there's always a fear of tipping too far. And some people worry about their 501c3 status. But with Women's Giving Alliance, we found that there's a lot we can do without crossing that line. The causes we choose are usually driven by our grantees, things that they raise with us, some have very specific legislative agendas that they tell us every year. When we asked our grantees what else we could do to help them, we heard the common refrain, use your voice. We go to Tallahassee, we take a bus trip, a dozen or two women go to Tallahassee every session while they're in session to talk to legislators. We've advocated bills about banning child marriage, affordable housing, and human trafficking legislation and funding, and successfully. When I was president, I wrote op-eds and letters to the governor. So engaging with the nonprofits in your community as a giving circle is one way to be civically engaged, but because you're going to learn a lot. But you can also advocate for the things they care about. So, Melissa, I've got a question for you. Why is this important? And why are giving circles uniquely suited for this moment?
Yeah, those are great questions. And I love picturing you in Tallahassee with your circle. So, while giving circles are often about creating change, it's really important to remember that structural change often happens in political halls with legislation in the rooms where power is really held. And that's why political giving circles are popping up and certainly so necessary in this moment. Giving circles have the tools to make this work. Pooled funding, community building, organizing, storytelling, these are all really powerful pieces of a puzzle that can make real change. And giving circles naturally cultivate all of those things. And those things can be very political. We tend to our community's immediate needs and the world's immediate needs. And it feels like in this moment especially, there's a crisis to respond to at all times. And it's really important to do that. We must do it. And we also need to be working for structural change. And for that, we really need to elect people whose values align with ours. So I think giving circles are uniquely poised to have that conversation within their communities and align themselves around people who can be elected to make change. And I think the model really lends itself to that.
I agree. The last time my group was together was in Seattle in late February. We had close to 400 women there. Melissa was there at our conference, which we do biennially. And it was all about diversity, equity, and inclusion this time. And our very last speaker said something that has really stuck with me, which is fund democracy. And if your members think it's too political, ask them if they'd like to breathe air and live in a democracy. And this was before. COVID was in the news, but they hadn't closed us down. So it was prescient, and I think it's something that bears consideration by all of us. And in my group, 450 women, you're never going to get them to agree to fund a political candidate or a state legislature or anything like that. But what we might be able to do is get them to do something nonpartisan. There's lots of ways, right, Melissa?
Absolutely. And I think that goes back to talking about your values and picking a value that your group can move forward with and really align on, and then framing some giving within that value set. And, it doesn't always have to be a big Senate race or a big congressional race. Your value could be tending to a local school board. Your value could be, making sure that some of these smaller elections get some focus. And it could also be that you have a policy that you all agree on. We all agree on a green policy or something that everyone can get behind. And then working with the groups that align on that policy work can be a way to enter this world as well.
Well, and there's also a lot of nonpartisan groups that are 501c3s that are getting out the vote, working on voter by mail. There was a lot of talk about the census a few months ago. That ship has probably sailed in terms of funding, but there were a lot of groups nationally that were pushing that out.
You're right. And voting access is a great one because that is nonpartisan. That is tending to democracy, making sure that people can vote, everybody.
Right. And I just talked to Sarah at Philanthropy Together and told her we'd send over some resources for organizations that are nonpartisan that you can support. And there's also, on the more partisan side, there's a lot of pooled funds you can support. Crooked Media has a bunch, depending on what you want to do. And if you're a small group and a new group and you align on values, this is a moment where you can guarantee a campaign, 20 to 30 people on a Zoom call, you can get a candidate to talk straight to you if you think that's something that you might want to do.
That's absolutely true. And, what I find so rich about political giving circles are that there's so many actions you can take together. You can get on a Zoom call with a candidate. You can also phone bank and text bank and go to a protest together for something that you believe in. You can build this community that connects giving circle members to one another through action. And I think that's really important. That's a huge part of giving circles, is creating that community space and moving together. And, again, I return to those shared values. You dig in, you do the research, you support candidates or policies or nonpartisan movements that resonate with your group. So it's very doable.
It's very doable. And like everything else, everything's better with friends. Philanthropic giving circles or ones that veer into politics. I couldn't be any more thrilled to have had this jump the shark in 2016 into politics. What are some easy things that people can do? Other than, and really, by the way, since every campaign has gone virtual, all these things are so easy. I sent 1,000 text messages in about 20 minutes on Saturday, and then sat there and responded to the few people who replied. They had canned responses. It could not have been any easier, but it made me feel like I was doing something.
Absolutely. I was thinking about some easy steps, and I know that it can be a little daunting to think about getting in touch with a candidate who's running for something. But, I have to say that especially locally, it's incredible to tend to your local races. And I guarantee that if you do some research, you can find a candidate whose values align with your group. And hosting someone who's running for local office will be a real gift to them. Getting them into a Zoom room with, again, like Paula said, 20 or 30 people, letting them talk a little bit, sharing what they're working on, that can be incredibly powerful. And getting people more civically engaged is a nonpartisan thing. And getting people to tend to the things that they care about in this country is a nonpartisan thing. And we can all be more engaged. We could all learn something here.
Exactly. And if everybody in that Zoom room takes a picture of the Brady Bunch screen and puts it on their Facebook, so many of especially new candidates, especially those on one side of the aisle, are being funded by small dollar donor gifts from around the country. It's really important. So you can get many of your circles involved in what you care about through social media. Could not be any easier.
Absolutely. Definitely.
Anything else to add?
I don't think so. I'm just thrilled that this conversation's happening. I'm thrilled that, giving circles are working in a new area and working on structural change together. It's a really exciting thing.
It's a bright spot at this time.
Thanks, Paula. Always great to talk to you.